Legends have always played an important part in human history. Some serve as a reminder of our past. Some people assist in instilling moral values in us. Then, of course, there are legends that simply send shivers down our spines. The best legends, those that are passed down through the ages, do all three. And many of these scary legends are founded on true incidents. They arose from encounters that so shocked or terrified our forefathers that they couldn't help but embellish the story over time, until it eventually became mythology. Here are some of the greatest instances of those legends, as well as the terrifying occurrences that appear to have inspired them. So that being said, as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy rest of the video. Number 1. The Pied Piper. The Pied Piper narrative is about the small German village of Hamelin, and how its residents hired a strange guy with a magical flute to get rid of their rodents. The piper returned for their children and used his flute to guide them away into the forest, never to be seen again after the city leaders refused to pay him for his work. The Pied Piper was first mentioned in 1300, when a stained glass window in the Hamelin church depicted a man with a flute leading away the city's children. The town's official chronicle states in 1384, "It is 100 years since our children left." A variety of explanations for the story have been presented by researchers. The incident could be a fictitious portrayal of a true disaster that killed the majority of the town's children, such as a famine or pandemic. Or the story may be about the 14th century dancing mania, a huge panic that led people to dance compulsively. At least one group of children has been known to dance their way out of town, accompanied by musicians. It's possible that the children of Hamelin did the same thing and never returned. Other, more disturbing theories have been presented, including one that claims the narrative is about a demented pedophile preying on the city's children. Number 2. Dracula. The modern vampire is heavily influenced by Bram Stoker's famous novel Dracula, in which the titular count is an undead monster that threatens to steal the blood and virtue of fine English ladies. But Dracula isn't solely the work of Bram Stoker. The persona is modeled on the real-life figure Vlad Dracula. Dracula, the son of a 15th century Romanian prince, fought a protracted struggle against the Ottomans, earning the moniker Vlad the Impaler for his preferred method of killing. Following Vlad's death, his bloodlust became the subject of dark stories, which later inspired Stoker. Stoker created Dracula by layering this historical figure atop pre-existing vampire stories. And in the process of disintegration, many legends have their own factual basis. After a person dies, their skin begins to shrink away from their hair and nails, giving the impression that they have grown since the body was buried. The gums shrink away from the teeth as well, which explains why vampires are said to have fangs. Finally, the gas produced by decomposition can cause the body to bloat, giving the impression that it has been fed. The vampire legends were born when medieval vampire hunters unearthed these corpses and attributed the alterations to the body rising from the grave to feed. Number 3. Hansel and Gretel. The story of Hansel and Gretel is about two children who were abandoned in the woods by their father, only to stumble upon a fascinating gingerbread mansion. Unfortunately, the house is occupied by a witch who imprisons them and begins fattening Hansel in order to eat him. Fortunately, Gretel kills the witch by throwing her into her own oven before she can consume the boy. The story contains several well-known fictional tropes from folklore, particularly the idea of a kid being abandoned in the woods by a family that can no longer feed them. Unfortunately, this motif has a very genuine historical basis. Families in the Middle Ages were sometimes only one bad harvest away from hunger. During times of hunger, children were frequently abandoned by families who were unable to provide for them. The act served two functions. First and foremost, it was a means of ensuring that at least some of the family would have enough to eat. Second, there was a gleam of hope that a passing traveler with better fortune might come upon the child and adopt them. The Hansel and Gretel story most likely started during the Great Famine, a time in Europe in the 14th century when major crop failures caused many people to commit infanticide and even cannibalism. The myth of the witch plotting to eat the young abandoned children undoubtedly reflects a reality that many desperate people in Europe were aware of but were hesitant to discuss openly. The tale could have been created to turn this awful reality of famine and infanticide into a happy story in which the children survive. Number 4. Bloody Mary. A ghost will materialize if you stand in a darkened room in front of a mirror and recite the phrase Bloody Mary 3 times. What occurs next differs depending on the teller. The ghost would sometimes scratch out your eyes or consume your blood. Sometimes she just curses you or drives you out of the room with horrifying shrieks. According to certain versions of the story, anyone wishing to summon the spirit must tease her by asking where her deceased kid went. And that version of the story may hold vital information about the legend's beginnings. The reign of Mary Tudor of England is the most likely explanation for where the fable originated. Mary was a Catholic ruler who presided over her Protestant subjects' often violent persecution, earning her the moniker Bloody Mary. Mary was also known for a string of miscarriages and fake pregnancies, which could explain why the ghost had a dead kid. However, the concept of seeing anything if you stare into a dark mirror appears to predate the Bloody Mary legend. Long before humans believed you could summon a ghost by looking into a mirror in a dark room, they believed you could glimpse your future lover's face in it. Researchers discovered that participants who stare at their reflection in a dark environment frequently begin to see weird faces in the mirror. It's possible that the various mirror legends sprang from this fact and were then blended with the legend of Bloody Mary to give us the version we have today. Number 5. Bluebeard. Bluebeard's mythology speaks of a sadistic count who marries a string of young women only to murder them one by one, and of his newest wife, who strives to avoid becoming his next victim. The plot closely resembles the real-life accounts of King Connemore. Connemore ruled Brittany, a Celtic area in what is now France. And his reign was so notoriously brutal that he earned the moniker Connemore the Accursed. Connemore was the inspiration for several Brittany legends, notably Bluebeard's. According to some traditions, Connemore once heard a prophecy that he would be deposed by his son. Connemore would murder his women as soon as they became pregnant to prevent this from happening. And, while it's possible that this story is also a legend, Connemore was not the type of guy anyone would want to marry. Connemore's entire life was marked by charges of murder. He began by assassinating his predecessor and marrying the man's widow. He then tried to assassinate her, but she escaped to a rival court. Connemore married for the second time to Tryphine. After a few years, he also murdered her and their son. King Connemore was eventually killed in combat by Judale, the son of his first victim, bringing an end to his terrible reign. However, he is most likely immortalized in the legend of Bluebeard and his wives. Thank you for watching. Hope you liked the video. What other real-life mysteries would you like us to explore? Let us know in the comments.